It's the WALT Pod Championship prediction time. Myself and Mark, we're here to predict the championship from 24th position to first position. And please, no crying in the comments. They're just predictions. Just our opinions. Everyone's entitled to them. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. Subscribe to our content because there's so much more championship content coming this year, as well as so many podcasts all going video. Also, get your predictions in the comments, please. And a quick shout out to our audio partners before we start. Black Star Amplification and Carry On. Make sure that we sound the best. We get fantastic microphones from them. Also, these fancy headphones. Shout out to Black Star Amplification and Carry On. And also to the Record Shop in Amersham, our new sponsor. They are fantastic. If you're ever in Amersham and you want to buy CDs or records, head down to the Record Shop in Amersham. Also with me today is Mark Ryman. How was it going through these predictions, Mark?
I was really confident until I got to about 5. And then I started to struggle after that point. I think it's always a bit of a lottery, the championship, isn't it? Especially when we've got a few weeks left of the window. But good fun all the same.
Yeah, it's been shaping up interestingly, hasn't it? Like the past few hours, you know,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about them, aren't we? But let's go through number 24. So in 24th position, I have Portsmouth, recently promoted. I like John Mousinho, I do. But I just feel it's a big step up, as we've seen, to the championship. You know, it really is. It's great seeing Portsmouth back in the second tier, though, for the first time in like over a decade, I think. But let's have a look at your 24th prediction. Who have you got in at 24, Mark?
So, yeah, I've got Blackburn at rock bottom. And I think that a lot of this will depend on who they keep and who they sell. But you only have to look at the ownership behind the scenes to see that they're an absolute mess. And I think that, you know, a lot of my predictions will be based around off the pitch as much as on it before the window shuts. They look like they're probably going to lose Smodics. I know that we've been interested in Dolan in the past as well. He looks like a player sometimes, but not always. I think they're really going to struggle this season as they did last season, to be honest.
It was a struggle for them. It was literally last day of the season they stayed up. And even with a golden boot winner, you shouldn't be that far down the table struggling last day of the season. But it is what it is. And I think they could end up keeping Smodics. I think they're going to be asking silly money for him. In 23rd position, who you got there?
Yeah, so I've got Plymouth. I think, again, they struggled last season. But really, again, it's not just about the on the field stuff. For me, it's the manager. How long do they keep hold of Wayne Rooney? Because look, he might prove me wrong and a fair few people, but when you look at Rooney's actual win ratio, I think his best with Derby was 26%. Regardless of that 21-point deduction, his record as a manager has been really poor, and I think with a struggling Plymouth side, that is a recipe for disaster.
It was the siege mentality that carried Derby through to near survival that season, but you just need to have a look at the season prior where Derby were only staying up because Rotherham just couldn't get their act together, couldn't string any wins together. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. In 23rd, I have Oxford United. I feel losing sort of a great talisman in Josh Murphy is a really big loss for them. It really is. And it's a shame because I just love the name of their manager, Des Buckingham. He sounds like a porn star. Tremendous. What a name. And he's a local Oxford boy. He's been with them for so long behind the scenes. It's tremendous that he got them up, but I just feel they're going to struggle this season. They really will. In 22nd, sort of the other way round, I have Wayne Rooney's Plymouth Argyle there. I think they're going to be rock bottom for the majority of the season. Then they're going to let Rooney go. and then they're going to make a little resurgence. But I feel it's going to be too little, too late for them, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Michael Cooper as well. I think he's probably one of the best keepers in the Championship, and obviously a lot of people are sniffing around him at the moment. But I feel he could go. He's got a year left on his contract, so Plymouth could very well cash in. Who do you have in 22nd?
Yeah, so I've got Oxford, as you said, switch round. Similar reasons to you. I think that they're going to struggle this season. I think they did very well to get in the playoffs last season, let alone win it. But I do think they're going to struggle with their squad, their depth of squad this season as well. So yeah, Oxford, I've got going down with Plymouth and Blackburn.
Well, let's have a look above the dotted line now. So 21st position is the only spot where we actually agreed. So we both have Derby, don't we?
Well, my in-laws are Derby supporters, so I felt I owed it to them to make sure that they were above the relegation zone. But only just.
Yeah, only just. I feel it's going to be a tough one for them. I don't know. Is James Collins even still there? He's not. He is. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
He scored I only know because he scored in one of their pre-season friendlies, I think.
Oh wow! I just don't think he's really cut out for the Championship. Yes, he had that glut of goals in the first season under Graham Jones, but I feel Elijah Adebayo coming into the team was needed because you could just see James Collins was huffing and puffing and he was struggling. He really was. He was just running around like a headless chicken most games, not actually being very effective. And now into 20th. We'll start with yours. Who you got in 20th, Mark?
Well, it's them lot down the road in 20th. As much as I'd love to put them in the relegation zone, I think they probably will escape it because I think the teams below them are in much worse positions. But off the field, Watford are a mess. I think most of their fans would probably agree with this as well. I mean, their ownership has frittered away so much money. I've heard they've had more income come into their club than in the last 4 years than some of the Premier League clubs. Still there. They've still got some good players, but whether they keep hold of all of them, they've lost quite a few. Whether they keep all of them, I'm not sure. And look, we know that the manager is going to go at some point. It's just how long it takes before they make the inevitable switch. But for me, I think they're going to be languishing down there this season with no parachute payments and some pretty awful ownership to back it up.
Watford sacking their managers? No,
I know.
That doesn't sound right to me. In 20th, I have Cardiff. I feel that they did all right last season, but they're incredibly streaky. I mainly put them down here because I don't think that they'll have the defensive solidity that we had when we had Ethan Horvath. And people, long-time listeners of the podcast will know I am not a fan of Ethan Horvath. He faced, on average, 2 shots a game, and he struggled with that. His clean sheet record was one of the best purely because we allowed the fewest shots per game in the Championship when we went up. So that is why I have Cardiff 20th. Moving into 19th. Who you got there, Mark?
Yeah, so I put Swansea in 19th, so close in terms of geography at least. I think they've been struggling for a few seasons and they've constantly lost some of their best players to the top teams as well. And I don't know, it's another one that they could finish a fair bit higher than where I've put them. But I just think that they struggle. They struggled quite a lot last season, getting the ball in the back of the net, and I think that that's going to be another issue this season unless they make quite a few signings in the next few weeks.
Yeah, in 19th, I have Stoke City, although I'm very impressed with the keeper that they signed, Big Vic Johansson from Rotherham. I just feel it's going to be another relegation battle for Big Vic once again. They have this knack of, with Steven Schumacher now, they keep poaching managers, thinking, "Oh yeah, this will turn it around. This will turn it around." But I just don't see that for Stoke. I can't see them turning it around this season. Who knows if their stars will perform there. Waterberger, he looked good towards the end of last season. Let's see what happens, I guess. And not too far from your prediction of Swansea in 19th. In 18th, I have Swansea, mainly for pretty much the same reasons as you. They're not really effective going forward, but there's still time for them to make a transfer. They could finish much higher. Who knows? And who have you got in 18th?
Yeah, Preston, I think they started last season really well, obviously, and then dropped down to 10th, which on paper looks quite a good finish for them, low budget team. But actually, when you look at the vast majority of where they were for a lot of that season, they're on a downward trend, and I think that's going to continue. I don't mind Ryan Lowe as a manager, so I think they'll do okay. I don't think they'll be really dragged into it, but they're relying on one or two players, and I think Reece has scored a phenomenal goal against us, but there isn't anyone really prolific there. And I think they, again, are not going to be pushing towards the playoffs as they did for most part of last season anyway, before they dropped.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Reece. He's one that I'd really like. Brad Potts as well scored a sensational goal against us. Almost the same as Reece. Like Reece, that was at Deepdale, wasn't it? The fantastic strike across goal, and then obviously Brad Potts scored that ridiculous goal like in front of the Kenny end. Insane, absolutely insane. So who do you have above Preston in 17th?
Yeah, so I've got Millwall. Lots of people have predicted them to do really well, and I suppose they could do their old manager back. Harris, I don't see it. They've signed Tanganga, I think, haven't they, from Spurs again? I know he's on loan there last season.
No, he's permanent now. I think that's a tremendous signing.
Right. Yeah, it's a good signing at the back. I can't see them making that many inroads going forwards. Again, it's one of those. They could finish a fair bit higher. They could push a bit higher. I just can't see them scoring enough goals to be pushing towards the playoffs. I don't see them really in trouble. So, yeah, 17th for me.
It's been a very tough summer and last season for them with the owner passing away, and then with their keeper passing really unexpectedly in the summer. I would hope that I have them higher in the table because I feel they will do it for Sarkic. But in 17th, I have Sunderland for the sole reason that Labrie, I don't know what he's about. I hear about philosophies, pass, attacking football, but the reality is this is the Championship. It's completely different from, where he's come. And Sunderland have a very young team. And they also haven't had a recognised striker for a long time. I think Ross Stewart was probably their last actual recognised striker. Ellis Sims as well, who was on loan and is absolutely tearing it up at Coventry. I can't see a top half finish for Sunderland this season, so I have them in 17th. 16th, I have Blackburn Rovers. I obviously think that they'll do slightly better than rock bottom, as you predicted. Obviously this prediction hinges entirely on them keeping Sammy Smodics and Tyrese Dolan staying as well. If Sammy Smodics stays, I think they could finish 16th. But if Smodics goes, that drops really rapidly, really quickly. What about you? Who's in 16th?
Yeah, so I've got Sheffield Wednesday in 16th. I've seen some podcasts put them at like third or even second. I've seen one podcast put them at second. I mean, look, Danny Rowell, I like Danny Rowell. I think he's a good manager and he's done brilliant things with them considering where he took them over from. Definitely. I think they'll improve. I don't see them improving to the extent that some people think they will. I still think their squad's a little bit light for that. But yeah, I've got them at 16th for that reason.
Yeah, it's a young squad, but I'm a big fan of Danny Rowell too. I could see him getting poached during the year. definitely. And in 15th, yep, we've done 16th. In 15th, I have that lot from down the road, overperforming. You know them; they're so slimy. You know, they'll be in a relegation battle, but they'll slowly creep up the table the second half of the season. It's what they always do. Well, it's what they've done for the past. They did that last year. You know, they're very much on a downward trajectory, in my opinion. They're selling off all their assets. They're not reinvesting the cash. Like João Pedro went for 30 mil. They went out and they signed Tom Ince for, what was it, £25,000. They just don't reinvest their money. They don't recruit well. I think 15th is probably being a little bit generous, to be honest. Who have you got in 15th?
Yeah, so I've got Stoke, a bit like a British tourist on a Spanish holiday, like with their beach towel. They're desperate to get that 15th or 14th place nailed down at the start of the season. So I've got Stoke. It's between them and people like Bristol City, I suppose. But yeah, I'll put Stoke at 15th. I mean, they've tried everything. They've got, as you say, Schumacher, who did brilliantly with Plymouth. But, you know, I think everybody's experience has taught us that regardless of how good they look on paper, they generally finish in the bottom half of the table, and they have done since they've been relegated from the Premier League. So as much as I jest about them guaranteeing themselves that place, they haven't demonstrated in the last however many seasons it's been now that they're any better than about 13th position. So Stoke for me, 15th.
Yeah, they've been languishing since they got relegated from the Premier League. It's quite amusing. If it wasn't so sad for them, it would be funny. Like even Stoke fans would find that absolutely hilarious. In 14th, not too far away from your prediction, I have Sheffield Wednesday. Again, big fan of Danny Rowe. Love him. I think he's got style. I think what he's done with the Sheffield Wednesday team is tremendous. Maybe a little bit lightweight in midfield, relying on Barry Bannon. Barry Bannon is just, he's got to be about 55 now. It's absolutely crazy. He's been around for donkey's years. Yeah. What about you? Who you got in 14th place?
I've got Pompey in 14th, but this was, I mean, I did write this before the sad news about Colby Bishop, and I hope he's okay and recovering well from, or I don't know if he's actually had heart surgery yet, but obviously that's awful, and hopefully that he's able to get back on the pitch again and play. This is a big part of them last season. I do really like their manager. He's very young, and I do like them as a team as well. I like the way they reacted last season, and I think that we showed in our first season back in the Championship when Nathan Jones took over how strong a team ethic can be in keeping you in the division. So, yeah, I think Pompey will do the best out of the promoted sides, and I see them staying up relatively comfortably. But again, this was before the news about Bishop's heart surgery, but I'd still have them around that area.
So I made my predictions after that news of the heart surgery, and obviously our thoughts go out to Colby Bishop. It's really sad, and he scored a lot of goals for Portsmouth last year, but one thing you do need in the Championship to win games is a goal scorer, and Colby was that one. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference in our predictions. So in 13th, I have Bristol City. One thing I always say is if Bristol City don't finish mid-table in the Championship, the earth is going to wobble off its axis and hurtle into the sun, because that is what Bristol City do. They are specialists in finishing mid-table or around mid-table. That's what they do. They have splashed some cash. You know, as always, they are losing a bit of money, but they brought in some money last season from selling Semenyo. What a player Semenyo is. Tore us apart for Bournemouth in that game that we just won't talk about because it still gives every single Luton Town fan nightmares. But yeah, Bristol City, 13th for me. What about you?
I've got QPR 13th. I think, again, they'll improve under the new manager. And I think he's excellent. I think he's one of the best managers in the league, actually. And he's taken a languishing QPR team under Ainsworth into a really strong form. They've still got some decent players there as well. I think they'll do okay, and certainly improve. I think, given a full pre-season, it could be even better for them. But yeah, for me, I think 13th for QPR, a strong improvement from last season. And again, we'll see who they sign in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, look, Marty Cifuentes did a remarkable job of undoing all the bad that Gareth Ainsworth did with the haka. That was one of the worst things I've seen on football social media.
That provided me with at least 2 hours of entertainment. Don't you take away the hacker, please. That was one of the most funny things I saw on Twitter last year.
Yeah, I don't know what was going through his head. Like, get like professional rugby players to do it. Just got some random bloke from West London off the street. It's like, yeah, you look of the correct heritage. Yeah, you know the haka. Yeah, learn it in 10 minutes, and then pop by. We have a job for you.
Brilliant.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, 12th position. I have Preston North End. I'm a fan of Ryan Lowe as well. Yeah, you mentioned it, but Preston are very streaky. They'll start off really well. They'll drop off. But I feel mid-table beckons for them. Who do you have in 12th?
Yeah, I've got Hull, and again, Hull are one of those that are really difficult to predict for me. I think they could be higher, they could be a lot lower with the new manager in, bit of an unknown quantity. Obviously, they've lost players like Joe Philogene back to Villa, and a couple of other big players for them as well. They've brought in Drame, of course, who was once on loan with us and from Leeds. But I think, I don't know, there's lots of new players that have been pushed together who I don't know will gel as part of a team. And I don't like the way, if I'm honest, that they do business. I don't like the way that Rossini was gone. I think that was harsh. I really do, on a team that had only relatively recently gone up from League One. And I think that they're asking for trouble, underestimating how tough the Championship really is. You don't just buy players that look good on Transfer Market. You actually have to build a team. And I feel like that's what they're doing a little bit. So for me, I think they'll struggle to really push for the top six again. But, as I said, it could be higher.
I agree with you there. It was absolute madness that they sacked Liam Rossini. 7th place finish, but it's playoffs, promotion or bust for Aachen, and they've invested a lot of money. They're throwing around a lot of cash for a team that were recently promoted from League One, but they brought in a lot of cash. They lost Jared Bowen 2 seasons ago. I think that money's kept the lights on quite well. The other fella that went to Brentford, Keane Lewis Potter.
Yeah.
They lost Jacob Greaves as well for a lot of money, and Philogene also for a lot of money. I think they've made like 40 mil this window so far. My prediction for Hull isn't too different from yours though. Going up to 11th, I have Millwall. I feel Neil Harris will have them defensively very solid. I'm such a fan of Jake Cooper, the human giraffe, because his neck is just so long. It's crazy. Big fan of Jake Cooper. I feel that they've also, you mentioned it, they made good signings in defence. Will they have enough firepower up top? Bradshaw will still be hitting the target? Maybe. But, these 4 positions, they could move around from 11th to 16th. They're sort of interchangeable, in my opinion. Who have you got in 11th place?
So, yeah, I've got Bristol City, a bit like Stoke. Love a mid-table finish, as you've already said. I think as well, obviously, they've lost some important players for them over the last couple of seasons, and Tommy Conway looks like he might be out the door as well, and that would be a huge loss for them. They can't rely on players like Naki Wells. I don't know how old he is now, but he must be getting on a bit to score them goals. I know they've spent money on a striker from Vienna, I think, Rapid Vienna, but he only scored 5 or 6 goals. So again, Yeah, I don't mind Liam Manning, actually, despite some of the clubs that he's managed in the past. I don't mind him as a manager. I think he'll do all right. Um, but I just don't see them having enough firepower to get any higher than mid-table.
Funnily enough, I actually have a friend that played with Naki Wells in the Bermudan national team. That is surreal. And yeah, he's another one. He's just been around for so long. He's ancient. He likes scoring against us too. Right, into the top 10, I have Hull. As I said, not too different from yours.
No.
They've obviously, they're starting to put together a team. I think they were linked with Thomas Asante from West Brom, but it looks like they've sort of been gazumped by Coventry. We'll see how that plays out. But these are early predictions, so we don't really know. So I have Hull in 10th. Who's in 10th for you?
I've got Cardiff. So quite different. I think this might be ideal. But you know what? This is my punt based on I think Chris Willock find his form. So this is purely based on Chris Willock only. I don't know why, I feel like I've seen Chris Willock play brilliantly for QPR. I know QPR fans and lots of other people who watch the Championship will know that his form has dropped off a cliff. But when he plays well, he is some player for them. So, yeah, I don't know. I've got a feeling it's a bit of a pump, but I've got Cardiff at 10.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll find his form. I just don't know. Maybe. Who knows? Right, into 9th position. I have Norwich. I feel this depends entirely on them losing Gabriel Sara, who I think is unbelievable. He should be in the Premier League. What a player. What a player. If we could afford him, I'd love us to take him. I think he's such a good player. So I'm assuming that they're going to lose him, and then Josh Sargent's not really going to hit form because he's going to. There's going to be a drop off. New manager as well, new director of football, and Josh Sargent just won't hit form. But yeah, who you got in 9th?
I've got Sunderland, but I agree with your points that you made earlier about Sunderland, and I know I've seen some people put them a lot higher or a lot lower. I still think they've got a very exciting young team, but it will rely a lot on how good Liberis is at getting the best out of those players and who stays. I mean, I think Clark's a good player. I think Bellingham showed elements of being a fantastic player as well. Obviously, people are always going to make those unfair comparisons with his brother, but I think he did do quite well from the games that I saw him play last season, and I think Sunderland will be pushing up there. They've played some pretty exciting attacking football as well. So yeah, I've got them in 9th for that reason.
Yeah, look, with Joe Bellingham, 7 goals from midfield as an attacking midfielder at the age of 18 is, no mean feat. It's absolutely sensational from him, and I feel he will be a good player. It looks like he's going to stick around at Sunderland. So, there is one. I took a punt on putting them so low, but they could be much higher. Right, 8th spot. Start with yours. Who you got?
Sheffield United. Now, this is a funny one. I think that Sheffield United and Burnley have the capability of doing a lot better than where I've put them without giving too much away. But I do think that Wilder's had his time as well. I've thought a lot about managers when I made these predictions, and I know that Wilder's been very successful with Sheffield United, but he did show again last season that he didn't really have an answer when tactics changed, etc. I also think they've lost a lot of players, and they could lose more. If they lose players like Gus Hayward, that's going to be huge as well. I know that could happen. There's lots of rumours about. Who knows? I think they're gonna struggle. There's such a lot going on off the pitch. I know they've made some good signings. Harrison Burrows is an excellent one, but I still think that they're gonna struggle a little bit compared to what some of the expectations are. But there we go.
Yeah, I have them in a completely different position. We'll talk about that in a bit. In 8th, I have QPR for the reasons we talked about earlier. I think Marty Cifuentes is a brilliant manager. Ilias Chair, who should be in prison, but has somehow managed to get off. Well done to him, I suppose. he is a tremendous player, even if he is a complete garbage bag of a human being. So I have QPR in 8th. In 7th, I have West Brom, who appear to be selling off assets like Michael Jackson. Uh, Connor Townsend could be leaving. Brendan Thomas Asante could be going. Okay, Yakushlu's on his way out as well. They'll replace them, but they'll replace them with cheaper, inferior people. Because I don't know their ownership situation, but I know it hasn't been good the past few years. But I feel they'll have enough about them to, maintain a playoff push. But I just don't think they will make the playoffs. What about you? Who's in 7th spot for you?
Yeah, so I've got Middlesbrough in 7th, just missing out. But again, I mean, I could quite easily see them in the playoffs. I'm not convinced with Carrick still. I think that they started so poorly last season. He did really well. And they started so well the season prior, and then they finished so badly. It's quite difficult to get a judgment call. I mean, the season obviously that we won the playoffs and finished 3rd, they was, some of the decision making that he made in the lead up to those playoffs ultimately, for me, cost them that semi-final against Coventry, because those poor decisions of resting players. They've certainly got the squad to be pushing easily, I think. I think they've got some excellent players. But particularly Isaiah Jones, I still think he's a fantastic fullback.
I'd take him at Luton.
He's an exceptional fullback. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's rumours that Ryan Giles has had enough at Hull after 2 minutes. So, I don't know. But that would be a phenomenal pairing for me, I think, for them. And obviously Giles, has done well for them before. But it's Carrick really that I'm still 50-50 on whether he can see them over the line.
Yeah, true. He can be quite streaky, but on the other side of the dotted line into the playoffs, 6th position, I have Middlesbrough. I think they're going to just make it into the playoffs. Streaky Carrick strikes again. There will be ups, there will be downs, but I just feel he'll have enough about that team. And I reckon, they'll make it into the playoffs. It could be comfortable for them in the end. Who's in 6th position for you?
I've got Burnley in 6th. And again, this is a fair bit lower than I think a few people have put Burnley in. So I'll justify it based on manager. I don't rate Scott Parker at all. I think that he has done very well with teams that were expected to breeze the league and actually done quite average with those teams and sometimes underperformed. There's plenty of people that have said the same thing, but I think that whole team is built around Vincent Kompany, and then to put someone like Parker, who is such a different manager, in there with that group of players, I think might be problematic. Completely different philosophy. They built everything around one person who then left for Bayern Munich after finishing in 19th place in the Premier League. Fair play to him for doing that. But I think that for me is the reason. They've obviously got excellent players. They've got some really talented players, and I back Lyle Foster to do particularly well this season as well. I know he didn't score that many goals in the Premier League, and obviously he was out injured and other issues with him. But I do think that when I've seen him, and I've seen him play live against us as well, he looked a real threat. So I think he'll be a top player for them. But yeah, Scott Parker's going to hold it back for me.
Yeah, Lyle Foster, what a player. I completely agree with everything you said about Scott Parker. It's passing for passing's sake. He does take a tremendous team and just make it difficult. It's like he's working against himself. Right, into 5th position, I have the mighty Luton Town. I've been quite generous with this prediction because I feel, everyone's saying, oh, we could get automatics. Oh, we will comfortably make the playoffs. But I do think we could get found out the way we play this season. Considering, as of recording, we've only made 2 signings, Ruel Walters and Shandon Baptiste. Our midfield is looking very light. We have so many defensive problems at the moment with Bell out injured, Mads Anderson out injured. Ted Mengi's played 1 game so far in pre-season. Also, Marvelous Nakamba's still out. I feel it will be a struggle. We're still going to have that sort of gap in the middle. We're going to be playing exclusively on the wings, and we could get found out. And if Alfie Doughty loses form or gets injured or is sold, then pretty much 90% of all our chances created from last season is out the team, and we will struggle to create chances. So it's a very generous fifth place for Luton Town. Who have you got in fifth?
I've got Cov, but I also think they could finish higher as well. They're a great team. They've got an excellent manager as well, and they've just signed some great players. And it looks like they're going to be signing at least a couple more as well. I think Ellis Sims really came into his own towards the end of last season and looks a real threat in this league as number 9. So, yeah, I think they'll be a bigger threat than they have been for the last few years. And again, they're another one that I could see easily pushing for the automatics. This bit was quite tough for me to predict. So yeah, Coventry for me in fifth.
Yeah, so into fourth, I have Coventry for all the same reasons as you, and I want to add in Haji Wright, who is a tremendous player. He's one that we should have been all over. I think they signed him for 2 million. That's nothing considering how good he's turned out to be. Mark Robbins as well. What a manager. Who have you got in fourth?
So I've got Norwich in fourth. Similar reasons to what you said. The change of manager for me is a massive positive, I think, and the changes in the board as well, both positives for me for Norwich. And again, if they keep Zara, that's a massive change as well. But they've still got some good players apart from that. I don't know whether Josh Sargent just relies on that. I think he'll still score quite a few goals. He is streaky, definitely, but when he's on form, he does look a bit unstoppable for them. And of course, players like Stacey as well for them. I think Norwich will do well this season. So I've got them comfortably in the playoffs.
See, it's a big if there. If Sarah stays, and I've sort of hedged on the fact that I think Sarah will go, hence why they're missing out on the playoffs, whereas you have them firmly in the playoffs. Right, third spot, I have Burnley. I feel Scott Parker, it's going to be a case of making a mountain out of a molehill. He's going to make this challenge. He's going to make this job this season so much harder than it actually is, because Burnley have some fantastic players. They got Wilson Odebear to come back, and he's going to be levels above the Championship this season, and they're going to miss out on automatics purely because of Scott Parker ball. Who do you have in third?
I've got us. I mean, I get everything that you said about Luton, and I kind of agree. I think for me, our position depends a lot on how quickly we can adjust to the way we're going to play. I think we're going to struggle in the first few games to try and adapt to the way that Edwards wants to play. I'm not going to read too much into the friendlies. I know that we've been able to watch them all now, which has been a bit of a curse rather than a blessing, I think. But against Dundee, we looked a lot better. Going forward, we seem to have a lot more organisation. But on the flip side to what you said, and I don't disagree, we've got 2 attackers in Morris and Adebayo that scored 20 goals between them in the Premier League. That's incredible. When you look at players like Lyle Foster, who we both talked about as being brilliant players, he scored 5-6 goals. So all right, they've played more games, but Elijah, he stays with us, and I think he will. Fingers crossed, touch wood. I think that is an excellent attack with people like Chong and Clark behind him. We're going to cause teams a hell of a problem. Yes, I agree with everything you said about the defence. There's clearly some gaps there in midfield that we desperately need to fill, and I really hope we do make some signings. But for me, it's going to be an exciting one. We're certainly gonna score a lot of goals. We'll probably give away a fair few as well. But no, I think it is all about how long it takes us to adapt.
Yeah, I agree with what you say, and it's not just about making signings; it's about keeping players as well. Right, into the top 2, number 2 spot, I have Sheffield United, based purely on the fact that I think they're going to start really badly, and they're going to sack Chris Wilder. That's my bold prediction of the season. And then someone else is going to come in, and they've, in my opinion, they have a better team this season than they did last season. I think Callum O'Hare is a tremendous signing. I think he's an upgrade on Ollie McBurney. Yes, I know they're different positions, but I feel Callum O'Hare will provide more, instead of just a big man up top to, knock it on to someone else. I don't think they're done yet. I think they're going to be splashing cash. Don't know what cash they have to splash, but they're going to be splashing it regardless. And as you said, Harrison Burrows, what a signing. We'll see if he can do it in the Championship. But that's number 2 for me, Sheffield United. Who is in number 2 for you?
So again, a bit of a punt, and this is 24 hours before they seem to be selling all the players. I put West Brom in. Now, yeah,
terrible.
Yeah, it's looking worse by the minute. What I would say, though, is I've based most of my predictions on managers. So I'm going to go with Carlos Corberán as probably the best manager in the Championship. In my opinion, I think he's incredible. And the fact that West Brom have kept him is brilliant. They need a goal scorer desperately, and they have done for a long time. I think someone who can reliably score them lots of goals, and that is very, that's going to be dependent on that. Daryl DK looks like he's gone. He's been injured for a lot. It's sad to see him again injured against Ipswich, and I think he's out at minimum until January now. But I do think with players like Wallace as well. I mean, Jeb Wallace for me is absolute stalwart of the Championship. He's an incredible player, a really, really good player, and shown how good he was for Millwall by their steady decline after he left. Really, I think with Swift and Wallace, they've still got a really good chance. But yeah, this was prior to the Tom Sasante and a few others disappearing on the horizon to other teams. So I'll put that in a caveat.
Look, I agree with you about Carlos Corberán. He has some sort of mystical power over us. He always manages to, nab a result. I really rate him. That's good, pragmatic football. It's sort of like how Nathan Jones used to play. And then, number 1 spot, we have both agreed on Leeds United, Mark.
Yeah.
What a team.
Surprise.
That they got a great team, even if they do lose Somerville, which is a reality they could, but they absolutely smashed it last year and then flopped right at the wrong time and just failed in the playoff final.
Yeah. And they've got a manager in Farker who knows how to win the league and knows how to do well in the Championship as well. Again, based on managers, but you're right. I mean, going forward, they looked amazing. The games that I saw them play when they were playing well, just absolutely. That second leg, was it the second leg in the playoff semi-final?
Yeah, blew them away. Destroyed them.
Absolutely. That was incredible to watch. I mean, they play that football and there's no one stopping them in this league, I think. They're too good for the Championship. I really think they're going up. First. I don't think
they're storming the league, I reckon, over 100 points.
I wouldn't disagree with that, no.
Yeah. Anyway, that was our Championship predictions. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe for more Championship content and Luton Town content throughout the season. Come on, you Hatters.